Round one of the NFL draft is officially over, and I'm hitting you with my instant reactions for fantasy football. Which landing spots do I love? Which ones do I hate? Who won? Who lost? Who do we lean into? And who do we fade? Jeremiyah Love drafted to the Arizona Cardinals. We will start off with Jeremiyah Love because we already knew that Fernando Mendoza was happening. That was expected. But the Cardinals actually did it. They drafted Jeremiyah Love. What an absolutely stacked group of offensive weapons. General consensus, though, that I'm seeing as I peek around social media is that everybody hates this landing spot. I get it, but I'm actually not mad at it because the Cardinals aren't a bad location for a running back. Hear me out before you come at me in the comments. Yes, the offensive line is an issue, but they didn't struggle as much with run blocking, considering the group of ragtag running backs that the Cardinals rolled out on a weekly basis last year. It's actually pretty encouraging that they were literally right on league average in terms of yards per carry. And we talked about this ad nauseum last season when it came to waivers. We were picking up whoever the Cardinals were starting because they actually moved the ball extremely well with Jacoby Brissett because they were stacked with pass catchers and they had an average at best defense. And I give them average because they did improve as the season went on. But Jacoby Brissett only started 12 games. It'll say 14, but it's only 12. He played less than 5% of snaps and threw the ball one time in those other two starts, so they don't count. It was 12 games. In 12 games, he had 23 passing touchdowns. 23 passing touchdowns. His 17 game pace would have literally made him top three in passing touchdowns. His touchdown rate was so aggressive because they had no running back. Brissett had 80 attempts. 80 attempts inside the 20. Now, for reference, he had the eighth most attempts inside the red zone again in literally just 12 starts. He is an illogical outlier. That does not make sense. The volume should come down. We should not see that again. The volume should come down and balance out by them giving more touches in the red zone to Love. So win-win for us. So again, I don't hate this landing spot as much as everybody else does. He will run the ball just fine. He will get plenty of receptions since they will be chasing points all season long. And there will be enough goal line opportunities for him. Plus, we're going to get a little ADP discount because nobody trusts the Cardinals. So again, win. So while I do think that it is absolutely ridiculous that the Cardinals made this pick from a fantasy perspective, I don't dislike it. And we've also learned a valuable lesson. Anytime you see Tyler Algier added to a roster, just know that the team is about to draft a generational talent at running back. Carnell Tate to the Tennessee Titans. I am so happy that this happened. I was genuinely concerned that the Titans were going to take Jeremiyah Love, which is not bad, right? But it would have left Cam Ward without a true wide receiver one. So this was one of my ideal landing spots. I wanted Carnell Tate to Cam Ward for a perfect fit. It is exactly what the Titans needed. He is the clear wide receiver one for the Titans. My immediate reaction, because again, this was my ideal landing spot, is to be very, very bullish on this. And a lot of that is the progress that we saw from Cam Ward last season and the addition of Brian Daboll as the offensive coordinator. I talked about this in my year two leap video. Ward had over 3,000 yards, 15 touchdowns, 7 interceptions, 2 rushing touchdowns. Most of that came in the second half of the season. After the Titans' Week 10 bye week, despite having a rather difficult schedule, he had 12 touchdowns and just 1 interception, and that was against teams like Houston, Seattle, Cleveland, Jacksonville, Kansas City. Those are difficult defenses, so very encouraging. I truly believe that Cam Ward is in for a year two leap, and Carnell Tate is going to be the big boost that helps him get there. If I had to guess the rest of the alignment for the other receivers, we did see Brian Daboll use Wan'Dale Robinson more liberally last season. He'd typically been relegated to the slot prior years and had that awful less than 5 yards average depth of target. Ugh. It was nearly doubled, though, in 2025. And some of that obviously could be the injury to Malik Neighbors, but also we saw it prior to his injury as well, that we were seeing more down the field usage for him. So that's a positive there. But the majority of his snaps were still in the slot. He was on the outside more than usual, though, so that's key. But Alec Eiermaner is definitely exclusively an outside receiver, so more than likely what we're going to see is Carnell Tate, wide receiver 1, Wan'Dale Robinson, wide receiver 2 in the slot, and then Alec Eiermaner on the outside, wide receiver 3. So we'll still get decent fantasy usage because of volume and targets. for Wan'Dale Robinson to be relevant. But despite I know some people having concerns that he may be the target hog in this offense and hurt Carnell Tate, I don't see it. I do think that they will have Carnell Tate as their wide receiver one. But I will say this, obviously DK, I love him. Tim Ray DK, I love him. Odd man out. But because he is so clearly excellent on special teams, there is still going to be a spot for him, and he can still have some usage there. Possibly a more consistent role in this offense if he showcases better there. The last thing there is that Calvin Ridley obviously remains a cut candidate there. Carnell Tate is our wide receiver one. Jordyn Tyson to the New Orleans Saints. We 100% knew we were getting a wide receiver added here. But I was really hoping for Olave's sake that it would not be one of the top guys and that would be a round 2 or 3 guy here, because Tyson is really an incredible talent. So it is entirely possible that he could operate as the wide receiver one. So we're going to have some controversy now, people. We're going to have to heavily debate this one in the offseason, because Olave's ranking right now, prior to this, was a top 12 wide receiver in consensus rankings. In while not every high-end rookie gets off to a very aggressive start, his presence does mean that we are going to have to reevaluate how comfortable we are taking Olave that high with Tyson's addition. So I do love the landing spot for him, though. But it'll definitely cause some drama for us trying to figure out ultimately who is going to be the alpha here. But the good news is that there's plenty of room in this offense for Tyson. And Tyler Shough looked very strong last season. Kellen Moore was very comfortable with letting him push volume. We don't have a lot of changes here, so we should continue to push a positive direction. Olave and Juwan Johnson were the only pass catchers that they had after the trade of Rashid Shaheed. So this offense is not overly crowded, and it is entirely possible for Olave and Tyson to both exceed 100 targets fairly easily. This makes me feel very good about Tyler Shough as well. The Saints have added much needed weapons in both Tyson and Travis Etienne. This is a nice little offense for him and Kellen Moore to work with. And we know that Kellen Moore is very wide receiver friendly and that he will not force this to be a slower paced offense. Cleveland passed on a wide receiver with their first pick, and then they added Concepcion. I must give credit where credit is due. I think that the Browns had a nice first round. They drafted an offensive lineman early instead of Carnell Tate. I think that was the right move. Their offensive line is absolutely awful. What is the value of a wide receiver if your quarterback has no time to physically get the ball downfield? Obviously, I was very concerned about Carnell Tate going to the Browns, and they simply didn't get a chance to do it, right? So then they drafted Concepcion. My opinion of Tate as a Brown is different than Concepcion as a Brown. While I hate to have talent like him go into such a questionable quarterback situation, this is legitimately a perfect fit for what they have. Jerry Jeudy is not a wide receiver one, but his skill set is really specifically downfield, and Concepcion would be the king underneath. And so it is a perfect pairing there. I don't mind it at all. Concepcion would be the volume guy. Jerry Jeudy would have some big plays. He is still under contract for this and next year. So this is their group here. We have no confusion about who would be the alpha here. I do think that it can be and should be Concepcion. And yes, there are concerns about Concepcion's hands, but outside of that, this is a great opportunity for him to establish himself as the clear wide receiver one. And yes, we do need to figure out the quarterback situation, but honestly, that is a lot easier to navigate for the role that Concepcion will have in this offense. As much as I hate to admit it, I can get on board with this one. Ty Simpson to the LA Rams. I guess all the rumors weren't BS. Crazy that the Rams, who by all accounts do have an excellent scouting department, felt comfortable taking Ty Simpson with the 13th overall pick. When they have a starting quarterback that literally just put up MVP numbers for last year. But they're looking at the future here. Now, we can debate all year long and then beyond that as well whether or not this was a logical pick. If Sean McVay is pissed about it, and if the only reason that the Rams did it was because their GM forced it, since Simpson's daddy is Les Snead's buddy. But regardless, it happened, so it is what it is, and we got to look at it from a fantasy perspective, right? So one big thing right off the bat for us is that Davante Adams is safe. Congratulations for now, though. It is good that we don't have to contend with Adams being situationally shelved for a younger model, but we do have to remember that, again, they scout well, and they can still find a guy that could replace him on day 2. So keep your eyes peeled for that. We're not just 100% safe out of the woods, but this was more of an ideal scenario for Davante Adams, right? Now for Simpson, honestly, I haven't felt one way or the other. I'm not a truther. I'm not super passionate, but I'm not a hater on it. I do trust the Rams, and Simpson was consistently, clearly the QB2 in this class, and he was pegged as someone who you would need to develop into a higher end quarterback. So if he got into the right hands, and Sean McVay is indeed the right hands, perhaps he could be developed into a franchise quarterback, right? Because there, not a lot of proof in the pudding in college, but potential is what they saw there. And even if Sean McVay is mad about the pick, he's not going to say, "I will not develop this guy," right? That's your quarterback. He's on your roster. So you got to work with him. So basically, we've got an Aaron Rodgers, Jordyn Love situation, but Stafford was informed this was going to be happening, so there's not going to be any drama. And the Rams have stated that they intend for this to be their future once Stafford is ready to retire. Honestly, for Simpson, this is a fantastic situation for him. Instead of getting thrown to a trash team where you have to start immediately behind a bad line, no weapons, which obviously destroys a lot of quarterbacks, now he gets to relax, learn from the best, and be ready for the future. Good for him. The Jets hit us with a double whammy, Kenyon, Sadiq, and Omar Cooper Jr. My initial reaction when the Jets took Kenyon Sadiq was okay. I'm not mad at it. I don't love it. I do like it for them. I'm still hesitant on the spot because it's the Jets and because it's Geno Smith. And there's a very questionable offensive line, and the team is gutted, and I do think that it is a tank job, right? I don't have a lot of confidence in this team, but I do prefer it to where everyone was mocking Sadiq, which would have been to Carolina. Because again, short story there, my concern was that offense straight up does not prioritize the tight end as a volume pass catcher, right? I feel like we got enough proof of that. And of course, unfortunately, this does mean goodbye to our Mason Taylor dynasty shares. Hate that so much. But it is what it is. And then the Jets took Omar Cooper Jr. and they just ruined anything that it could have been from a fantasy perspective. Now, conceptually, I'm not hating on this. Cooper and Garrett Wilson is a nice, logical pairing, right? Throw in Sadiq plus the existence of Breece Hall, and you got a real nice group here. Problem is you don't have a quarterback. I understand some people think that Geno still has it, and the issue was the Raiders. But I have grown very comfortable to get on board with the thought process that the Seahawks move on from quarterbacks literally just ahead of an impending implosion. So I do trust that history is going to repeat here, unfortunately, and that this is the end of the line for Geno. It's not going to happen, and we're not going to have some major turnaround here. So again, we've got a nice group of weapons, right? A suspect offensive line and a quarterback that more than likely did hit a wall. Perhaps the Jets know something about their offensive line that I don't. If this offensive line works out and they can get it right somehow and keep Geno Smith upright, hey, maybe I can somewhat get on board. But I don't kind of see it happening there, unfortunately. And we literally just saw him struggle behind that dreadful Raiders offensive line there. So really my concern here is that we've got this lovely group of weapons that unfortunately we're not going to be able to use if the quarterback cannot stay in the pocket and find them, unfortunately. So these additions do take away from Garrett Wilson and the overall upside and volume that he has. The QB situation makes it even murkier for all the pass catchers. I'm frustrated that 2 of our promising young pass catchers got stuck with the Jets. I will likely end up avoiding this situation. Makai Lemon to the Philadelphia Eagles. Wow. It seems like the A.J. Brown situation is settled here. More than likely, he is moving on, and Devontae Smith and Makai Lemon are the future of the Eagles. So ironic that yet again, a player drops past where he is expected to go. And of course, it is the Eagles that capitalize on it. We keep saying that Howie can't keep getting away with this, but he does. Every single year, he just keeps getting away with it. NFL teams, it is your responsibility to stop it and stop trading with him, but they're not going to. So this is the Eagles. But from a fantasy perspective, this is interesting because obviously we're going from A.J. Brown's size to slighter sized wide receivers leading the way. And that's leaving a lot of people saying that this was a mistake and Makai Lemon can't replace A.J. Brown. And he can't, right? He's not going to replace A.J. Brown, but that's not the issue. You're not trying to replace A.J. Brown. They don't have to replace A.J. Brown. They can simply move forward with a new identity. You don't have to. And a lot of times when you try and directly replace a wide receiver, it doesn't work out. Think back to when Tennessee tried to trade A.J. Brown and replace A.J. Brown with Treylon Burks. It didn't work out. Just draft the best talent there. And I think that is what the Eagles did. This only feels weird because you're thinking of A.J. Brown's specific body type and his skill set. If you erase that and you freshly look at Devontae Smith and Makai Lemon, that is an extremely formidable duo. What exactly is the issue here? But there's something else that we also need to look at as well. Something that is very critical for us, because when the Eagles get into the red zone, now that we've got the A.J. Brown size gone, right? And they want to throw it up to somebody, a bigger body with bigger size, it's going to be Dallas Goedert, who, not so coincidentally, had a career year last year in touchdowns. The man had a grand total of 7 touchdowns inside the 5. 7 touchdowns inside the 5. He led the league. 3 more touchdowns inside the 20. So just keep that in mind there. So yeah, I see the vision. Devontae Smith, wide receiver 1 on the outside. Makai Lemon wreaking havoc all over, but a good chunk in the slot. Saquon Barkley, red zone, Dallas Goedert. Dontavian Wicks is the wide receiver 3, other guy on the outside. I see it. I don't mind it. But ultimately, I do think this was a solid move. A.J. Brown doesn't want to be there. Makai fell. We talked about this on the live show, that there was no way that the Eagles were trading A.J. Brown and rolling with the crew that they had there in addition to Devontae Smith, right? They needed somebody else. So I think this was the right move. Side note. Apparently, and not apparently, this has been confirmed. So not apparently, like factually. Makai Lemon was on the phone with the Steelers. They were going to pick him. So thank you so much, Howie, for saving us from that mess here. Hopefully this was a best available situation and this talent fell and we can't pass it up pick, and not a sign that they're going to try and target another receiver in round 2. They're going to get another receiver, right? But I don't like another high-end top body in there. Ugh, I didn't want that. I didn't want to mess around with that with DK and Michael Pittman, so yay. Jadarian Price to Seattle. My Mike Washington dreams were crushed, people. Oh my God. I feel slightly spiritually broken, but let's talk it through. Seattle claimed they would be potentially trading out of this pick, but they went ahead and took Price, who is likely their running back of the future. We talked about this a lot. This was my most coveted running back landing spot because Seattle is insanely run heavy. And I don't expect that to change, even though we have to change an offensive coordinator. Zach Charbonnet and Kenneth Walker combined for over 400 yards last season, and we don't know Charbonnet's exact timeline, but it is highly unlikely that he starts the season healthy. We are more than likely looking at a mid-October, November time frame, if I had to guess, return. So there is going to be instant value for Price to potentially thrive in this offense. And as we talked about before, Charbonnet is a free agent in 2027, so there is a very good chance that Price is the RB1 for years to come, and that is very critical from a fantasy perspective for us. But I do want us to proceed with caution here, particularly in redraft, because Price's build isn't exactly massive, right? He's not tiny. He's not Devon Achane, but he's listed at 210. He ain't 210. He weighed in closer to 200 at the combine. He does have that same home run hitter tag that Kenneth Walker had, which is fantastic, right? But that could also mean that as Price gets the same potentially red zone treatment that we had with Kenneth Walker, we might run into an issue if we have that red zone removal situation. And while you might think, yeah, okay, Tara, but Charbonnet is hurt, so he's going to be a 3 down back for at least the duration that he's out, and then he can just earn that role and carry it on for the entire season, Tara. So what are we worried about? Yeah, but Emmanuel Wilson is a big guy, right? He's a very big back, so he can be that goal line sniper if they want to continue with the same concept that they had last season. They do actually have the perfect running back room to do that, so just be aware that it is entirely possible that this is the exact same irritating committee that we had last season, which is exactly why I wanted Washington to land here, because he is far too big to deny goal line touches, so he could have naturally solved that issue. But we will have to wait and see. This is one that we're going to have to pay attention to in training camp to get any tip-offs in terms of touches. If we do truly have a full across the entire field and no removal in the red zone for Jadarian Price, we are going to be in a good situation, a great situation, right? But if he doesn't get those red zone touches and really is actually replacing Kenneth Walker, we do have some concerns here because I do fear his ADP is going to skyrocket. Real quick note before we close things out, Miami not drafting a wide receiver as we continued to see top talent after talent after talent after talent going off the board. That's interesting because they don't have a wide receiver 1, 2, or 3 on their roster. No, I don't see it. I don't see it. There is depth at wide receiver in this class, which is interesting because maybe that works out from a fantasy perspective, because if they draft a Denzel Boston there, all of a sudden we're looking like, oh man, there's massive upside for him to be the wide receiver 1 in this offense with no competition. So we'll see. We'll see. We got to watch out for who they take, but perhaps the true wide receiver 1 all along was Devon Achane. Thanks for watching this video. If you enjoyed the video, be sure to like the video and subscribe to the channel. You can find me across all social media platforms at It's Tara Time, so make sure that you are locked in, tune in, subscribe, turn on notifications. I am live every Wednesday at 8 p.m. EST, so stop by for a chat. You can also support me by subscribing to my Substack. It is brand new. That is another way to support me. I will link it in the description below for you.